What's up? Welcome back to the Empowered Athlete Podcast. I'm so excited to welcome today's guest. She is a powerhouse of mind, body, and spirit, a woman of my own heart. It's been so nice to connect with her, and I'm so excited for this conversation today. This is Dr. Almine Barton. She has over 23 years of experience as a doctor of Chinese medicine, also a lifelong climber, a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Alliance founder Maestre Gigi Paiva. Hopefully, I didn't butcher that, and the creator of the really successful Hips and Grips camps, which we will dive into, which is a unique experience that blends rock climbing and jiu-jitsu for women. Which is a unique experience that blends rock climbing and jiu-jitsu for women. In this conversation, we dive into the fascinating overlap between climbing and grappling, how both teach you to find flow, face your fears, and build a deeper connection to your body. Whether you're a female athlete or climber, this episode is going to help you see training and your strength through an entirely new lens. I'm so excited to have this conversation. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right. So for those of us or listeners who have not heard of you or know what you're about, I'd love for you to dive into a little bit about your background and how you first got into rock climbing, because I believe that's what you started with before finding jujitsu. So we'll talk about jujitsu in a little bit. But for rock climbing, what led you to do that?
Yeah. Hi. First, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So when I was in my 20s, I had a crush on this guy, and he was really hot and really fit, and I was not. I was chubby, and I was the chubby funny girl, but I wasn't like the hot funny girl. So what I did was I asked him out because I was just like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to see what happens. And I'll never forget what he said. He goes, "Well, I'm a rock climber and I need a girl who rock climbs, and you definitely don't look like you do." And I was like, I was thinking, okay, A, he's not wrong. B, I've never rock climbed in my life. And C, he's right. I need to get in shape.
Mm,
And so I didn't take that rejection as like a bad thing. I was like, rock climbing does sound kind of fun. I do need to get in shape. He's
yeah.
right. I'm not like the best candidate right now for
Yeah.
somebody who's like super in shape and super, super active. But that rejection inspired me to want to be.
Mm. Oh, I
So
got chills.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
so
I was
good.
like, I'm not there yet. And thank you for um setting the container
Yeah.
for a good goal for me,
Yeah.
because I was drawn to him because he had a lifestyle that I think I subconsciously really wanted. I had
Mm.
just gotten out of grad school. I was exhausted. I'd gone through a divorce. I had lived out of my car in grad school for a part of it during my divorce. Like, I had gained a lot of stress weight, and
Mm-hmm.
I never ate poorly. I just overate portion sizes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was really just from the stress of my divorce on top of grad school. And I came out being the heaviest. Excuse me. Sorry. I just got back from training. I'm still like catching my breath a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but I realized like that rejection sort of sent me into this kind of like introspection spiral about
Yeah.
I just came out with a doctorate in Chinese medicine, and I want to help people with their health from a holistic lens, but I need to get my own house in order. Like, I
Mm.
have like burnout. I had been in grad school for 4 years. Like I said, I had just gone through a divorce. I was just exhausted and depleted. And I realized, oh, I asked out this guy because he's in a place in his life where I want to get to.
Mm.
And thank you for the rejection, because this is a mirror to me that I don't feel ready, even though I have the piece of paper
Yeah.
to counsel anybody else on their health or health journey right now,
Mm.
because I'm not being active. I'm like fresh out of grad school burnout.
Mm-hmm.
I have all this weight I need to take off, and that's what I'm going to do. And
Yeah.
so I did that. And that always kind of just sort of was like a sliver in my mind, what he said. And it wasn't, he
Yeah.
didn't say it meanly. He was just being like,
Yeah.
this is what I see. This is how it is. He wasn't being a jerk or anything. He was just like, yep, you're not my type. And I
Yeah.
was like, but I kind of want to be this guy's type.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
so,
so, that's so, such a cool story. And I really admire your integrity. I had the same similar pathway as far as like knowing I wanted to be a dietitian, but in the sense of, at the time, even though I knew I wanted to be a dietitian, I was in school for being a dietitian. I still had an eating disorder. And so I knew that like I had to get my own house, like you said, in order to really feel like I was being integral and being able to really help people because I can't help people if I can't help myself. Right. So like there's
yes.
beauty in having those truths highlighted. And if you can have the right mindset to see it as something to aspire to, that is
Yeah.
going to change the trajectory of your life versus just taking it as, internalizing that rejection and then kind of beating yourself up about that, but kind of redirecting that. And I think that's really, really beautiful. That's an awesome story of your introduction to rock climbing. So then when did you start jujitsu? Where'd that come into the picture? I'd love to kind of
Okay.
see
So,
that integration.
yeah. So fast forward almost 14 years later. Um, but just like really quick, like what ended up happening 2 years later from that initial rejection
Yeah.
is that I got asked out by a guy who I also thought was really hot and really fit. And, here I am, and I'm in like my late 20s. And he asked me, he's like, hey, do you want to go rock climbing with me? And it was like this really weird full circle where I was
Mm,
like, oh, somebody deems me fit enough now, 2 years later, after working on my health, working on my fitness, dropping all this weight, to ask me to go rock climbing with him.
oh my gosh, that's so
It's
good. I have full
Isn't
body
that
chills.
fun? Isn't that fun? And so then he taught me how to rock climb.
Oh,
So that's
so
how that
cool.
started. So it's that kind of fun little full circle. But
Yes.
to get back to your last question, I lost a bet. And the bet was whoever lost the bet had to sign up for a trial in jujitsu.
That's incredible because you've been doing jujitsu for how many years now?
14. So the funny thing was, this is all like so kind of funny how it all comes full circle in my life, but
Yeah.
um there was a speed climbing competition and I was pretty decent at that point at speed climbing, right? We're talking like 14 years later, right?
Yeah.
I'd kept climbing. And I have a climbing partner who's still to this day like my all-time favorite climbing partner, Derek. Wonderful guy, incredible professional guide at Smith Rock State Park. And he had a bet and he said, I'm going to beat you in this competition. And I said, no, no, you're not. Like, no, I got this one. And he's like, whoever loses has to try jujitsu. And I said, jujitsu? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, you mean like kicking a bag? And he's like,
Oh my
well,
gosh.
I think it's like kickboxing. He's like, "But, like that's what the loser has to do is that they have to sign up for a trial at a local gym."
That's
And I
hilarious.
said, "Okay, yeah, whatever." Because I was like, "Well, I'm not going to lose, so like I'm not going to
Yeah.
do like kicking a bag." Like I literally had zero idea, zero. I thought it was like Taekwondo or something, right? So
Yeah.
I lose by 2 seconds.
Mm.
By 2 seconds. And so we come down from this speed climbing competition, and he's like, all right, you have to sign up for jujitsu. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll find a taekwondo gym or karate gym, whatever. Like I literally thought that's what it was. So I Googled jujitsu, and at the time there was only one jujitsu gym in the town. So I was like, well, I guess that's where I go. So I walk in and I was like, what is going on in here? Because like I don't see any bags to kick. I don't
Yeah.
see any, like gloves. Like I totally envisioned like some striking kind of cardio kickboxing class. And I'm like, why are there a bunch of men in pajamas? Like on the ground, like rolling on top of each other. And I was like, oh my God, this is so San Francisco. I was like, what is going on in here? Like, this is like a little kinky. Like, I don't know what's happening. And then the professor comes out. He's like, hey, he's like, I'm Professor so and so. Um, are you here to start jujitsu? And I'm like, yeah, man, whatever. I'm just here for like the trial. I lost a bet. Like, yeah, sure, I am. Here's my whatever bucks for the trial 2 week. And he's like, oh, okay, that's cool, I guess. Yeah, come on in. We have loaner keys. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'll put on the pajamas. Like, I really had zero clue what was happening.
Yeah.
And fast forward, the 2 weeks ends. I start to walk out the door, and one of the guys goes, yeah, man, I knew she wouldn't last. And I just like stopped in my tracks. And I was like, excuse me? And he goes, yeah, man, like, do you see any chicks here? Like, no girls made it here. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, yeah, chicks come and they go. Like, they can't hang with us. And I was like, I'll sign up for a year. And the professor's like, what? And I was like, I'm going to be the first female purple belt at this gym. Mind you, I'd only had 2 weeks. I was totally like, I was
Did
just
you even
like,
know there were purple belts? Oh, were there some
I
purple belts in the
only
gym?
did because I saw them like they were framed in a plaque
Oh,
on
okay.
the wall, like the progression of the
Yeah, yeah.
belts. And I asked one of the guys, I said, well, what's the highest belt any woman has gotten here? And they said blue. And then they said, but the women always drop out at blue. And I was like, okay, then I'll get a purple. And they're like, bro, you can't just like order that at the drive-in. Like, you're going to have to work for that. And I was like, I can work. And they're like, what? And I'm like, there needs to be a woman at this gym. And they were just like, dude, like, fine, psycho bitch. They were just like, what the hell? Like, who is this woman? Who does she think she is? She has no idea what she's getting herself into. She kind of sucked at her trial. Like, she wasn't even that good. Like, and I just said, look, climbing favors the stubborn.
Hmm.
I can see jujitsu favors the stubborn. And
Yes.
stubborn. I'm going to
Yeah.
be the first female purple belt at this gym. And I was.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible.
So,
What an incredible story. I love that. Like that is the power of stubbornness sometimes.
no, girl, I literally, like, when I signed up for the full year, I was literally in my head going, oh shit. Like,
Sometimes we make take those actions out of stubbornness and we're like, oh God, like what
yeah,
is the
exactly. I
actual
was like, maybe
commitment?
I just totally, like, I jumped in way too deep. You know what I mean? But like, I did not like the fact that there was no females there. And
Yeah.
I didn't like the fact that, like, no woman had gone past blue there. And even though
Yeah.
I didn't even have a stripe on my white belt, I was just like, I want to break a glass ceiling here. I want
Hmm.
to do something different. And I want other women who walked in like I did with no clue what's going on to
Yeah.
not feel scared and intimidated like I felt. Even though I have a good poker face, I
Yeah.
still felt really scared walking in there. And they were
Yeah.
all like huge dudes.
Yeah.
I joke and say, I don't know what was in the mother's milk of my first gym, but they all looked like straight out of like Vulcan. Like
Yeah.
they were like Viking warlords. I was like, did your mothers like wet nurse each other? Like I remember asking them that. I'm like, what the hell? Why are you all 6'5" and bald and tattooed? Like, what's wrong with you? Like they all looked alike, and like straight out of a petri dish, like the clone army. I was just like, oh my God. And I'm
That's hilarious.
5'10. I'm 5'10. I'm not a tiny woman.
Oh
But
yeah.
I thought though, oh my God, I'm intimidated and I'm 5'10. How would a
Mm.
woman who's like 5 foot feel?
Yeah, I'm 5'2",
Walking
so yeah.
right,
That's
right.
funny.
So
That's hilarious.
yeah, so I was like, no, I have to like break a glass ceiling here so that a woman who's 5'1" or whatever doesn't feel scared to come in here.
Hmm.
Because it was a
That's
really
amazing.
intimidating gym.
Yeah.
I mean, I look back and I'm still kind of like, what the hell? Like there was no women's class. I mean, there was no nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
there was no beginners class. I mean, it was just like start rolling.
That's crazy.
Oh,
Yeah, that's how
yeah.
it was. That is how it was back then. So your first experience on the mats is a little intimidating. I'd love
Yeah.
to know a little bit about did you have the same experience with your first climbing experience on the wall, or how did that feel your first climbing? It's definitely a different animal with these Viking men, bald and tattooed, versus climbing's a little bit more independent, but still there's obviously fears and stuff that we'll get into. But just like, what was your first experience climbing?
Well, oddly enough, I actually, until you just asked that question, I've never thought about how similar my
Mm,
first experiences were because it was just a bunch of dudes. Like
mm,
out at Smith Rock, where I climbed for 21 years, it's in the top 5 hardest crags or climbing destinations in America. And it's the first place in the world that ever had bolted routes outdoors. So
mm.
it's like a historical place for climbers. Like climbers all over the world go there. It's kind of a mecca. I would
Yeah,
maybe think of it as like a step down from Yosemite.
yeah,
Somebody is like the proving ground, but like
yeah.
Smith Rock is up there. It's like incredibly difficult. And I mean, I really had no idea what was going on. I mean, I didn't,
So your first climbing experience was outdoors?
I had, let me say this. I took like a beginner class indoors at a
Okay.
local climbing gym, but it was like a Friday and a Saturday. And
Mm-hmm.
then I connected with that guy who asked me out. And he's like, "Do you want to go climbing?" And I really didn't honestly know what that meant.
Yeah.
And he took me to Smith Rock, and I was like, "Oh God, uh, where's the colored holds? Why is this all one color? And it doesn't look like there's anything to stand on." And he was there with like 10 other guy friends.
Yeah.
Like, I actually thought it was like a date.
Yeah.
But he was just like, "Hey man, like you seem cool, you seem fit enough," which was something I'd really worked towards.
Yeah.
"Why don't you like come out and let's go climbing?" And I thought it would just be him and I get out there and there was 10 men. And they're all like, "Hey, who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm Joseph's friend." And they're like, "Hey man, you got some climbing experience?" I said, "I just took an intro course at the climbing gym." And they're like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't have any outdoor climbing experience." And they're like, "And why the hell did you bring her?" And he's like, "Well, I wanted a date. And, chicks don't really like climber guys because, they never have money and they kind of stink." And I was like, uh, yeah, okay. Well, so I don't really know how to climb. They're like, "Well, I guess we have to teach you." So like both environments, now
Wow,
that
that's
you bring
crazy.
up that question, we're kind of like, fuck. Like
Yeah.
she's not like, I guess we have to help her.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
That's
mean?
insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I kind of got up there and I was just like, okay, I am out of my league.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah,
I love that. So that's such a funny story. I was cracking up. So to dive a little bit more into the similarities, since we're on that line of thinking between
yeah.
climbing and jujitsu, physically and mentally, what do you feel are the biggest similarities, having been in both for many, many years?
I feel like, I mean, let's just start with the dealing with fear
Mm-hmm.
aspect. Like, they're both cortisol pumping, adrenaline dumping sports. And they both require, which by the way, I love that you emphasize this in your coaching. In my opinion, they both require controlled breathing.
Mm,
And I love that
100%.
you offer breath work as part of your body of information that you share with your clients and your students and your camp participants. Breath work, in my opinion, is the number one neglected thing in jujitsu. If
Mm-hmm.
you go into a karate gym or into a taekwondo gym, they teach you how to breathe lesson one. When you kick a bag, when
Mm-hmm.
you kick a pat, and then they
Yeah.
teach you like how to breathe, like taking, short breaths in and then exhale with the punch or whatever. But
Yeah.
like we just completely ignore how powerful and important
Mm-hmm.
breathing is to keep the nervous system calm during
Yes.
these huge cortisol spiking sports. And I think if I start with climbing and work my way into jujitsu, I'm very grateful for me personally that I started with climbing. You can do it either way, right? They're oranges
Yeah.
and apples, and there's no wrong journey, right? But by the time I got to jujitsu 14 years ago, I had done heinously scary things like big walls all over the world,
Yeah.
where if you don't master calm in your breath, there are life or death consequences. Like these aren't like, I'm going to get an arm broken in a Kimura. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like serious shit. And what I have always cared about more is my climbing partner's life over my own. Because every single person I've taught how to climb who progresses to a serious level of like climbing big walls or climbing really, really hard stuff outdoors, I always ask them one question before they rope up. Are you willing to call my mom? Because you're
Mm.
going to be the first person to call my mom if something goes wrong. And I don't want to call your mom. So,
Yeah.
what that means is if you can't master being calm, which comes through controlled breathing,
Mm-hmm.
you will make mistakes, and mistakes here can be costly.
Absolutely.
So, because I had such kind of a dire mindset of life
Yeah.
or death consequences by the time I got to jujitsu, that has traveled into many aspects of how I treat my partners. In jujitsu, I still
Mm-hmm.
have the seriousness of, and knock on wood, to my knowledge, I've never hurt anybody. And I
Yeah.
actually take a lot of pride in that. Like, I should be the one to call their mom. If I
Mm-hmm.
put them in a hospital, or you know what I'm saying, for
Yeah.
some reason by accident or whatever, I take my partner's safety very seriously.
Yeah.
And I even have in competition. Like, I'm not the she signed the waiver girl. No,
Mm-hmm.
that woman has a job and she probably has children to get home to. My
Mm-hmm.
job is to do my best without my partner, because I still think of them as my climbing partner, going home uninjured.
Yeah.
So I still have that mentality.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't consider myself in a lot of ways like I consider myself kind of a passive player because it
Yeah.
is very, very important to me that whoever I'm training with or competing with gets home safely. And that comes from climbing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's a
Mm.
climbing mindset that if I take Natty out on a big wall, I'm not calling her mom.
Yeah.
She's coming down safely because she has children, she has a husband, and she has loved ones. And this is a hobby for her. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? So I've always taken people's safety who are in my care very
Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah. I think
And
that's
that,
really important.
yeah,
And
goes for jujitsu as well.
yeah, so when you say you kind of talking about fear being that big aspect and we talking
Oh,
about
yeah.
how do you feel like climbing, it may be in this way, or maybe there's other ways as well, helped you become a better grappler? So maybe there's more of that attention to safety or the calm and the chaos, which you kind of highlighted if there's something else as well. And or if you've noticed grappling also contributing to helping your climbing.
That is an awesome question. The first two things you mentioned, calm in the chaos. I feel like I'll never say I mastered anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to master anything. There is no perfect, there's just improvement.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I got to a very high level of being able to calm my nerves amidst dire circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
That has traveled into jujitsu.
Yeah.
Um, my partner's safety and my concern for their well being has traveled into jujitsu.
Yeah.
My ability to say no to a partner has traveled into jujitsu. I think that's an issue for a lot of women, right?
Mm.
Is saying no without justifying why.
Yeah, exactly.
But in climbing, if you get sketchy vibes about somebody or you see them
Mm.
being unsafe and then they ask you to climb with them, and I say, absolutely not. Because if you do, the consequences are dire,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? And so I've taken that ability over the years to learn to say no. I've lost friends over it. I had a
Mm.
great girlfriend. She was incredible, an incredible athlete. I mean, by all criteria, professional mountain biker, a downhill skier, just amazing. She was not a safe climber. And I loved her dearly. And she would ask me to climb with her. And I told her, I'm just going to make up her name, Amy. That's not her name, but I'll just say it is.
Yeah.
I said to her, Amy, I will go mountain biking with you. I'll go snowshoeing, whatever with you. I love you. You have failed a belay test 3 times indoors
Yeah.
at a climbing gym. If you think I'm letting you lead belay me outside,
Yeah.
you're wrong.
Yeah.
Now, I love you. This is not personal.
Yeah.
This is a safety issue.
Exactly.
Okay. She stopped being my friend because she felt hurt. And I get it. But what I learned is that if I get sketchy vibes about somebody where their ego is coming into play, I don't care if it's climbing or jujitsu. No, like just no. Like
Hmm.
there's no justification of that. My safety is on the line. So
Absolutely.
I feel like that is also a skill that I brought from
Oh yeah.
climbing into jujitsu. And because I trained mostly with dudes for the first 8 years,
Yeah.
there would be a woman who would kind of come and go and leave the gym and that kind of thing. But like 99% of the time for 8 years, I trained with men in jujitsu. And as you climb up the ranks, and God knows you know this, there's always men that want to put on their Instagram post, I bagged a black belt today. You're like, I'm 5'2".
Yeah.
I'm a mother. You're, 6'4". Really? But like if you get sketchy vibes like that, I'm just like, yeah, no,
Yeah.
no. So my ability to say no to partners due
Yeah.
to weird vibes, safety reasons,
Hmm.
has traversed across the
Yeah.
sport. And I feel like, I mean, I'll be 50 next year. I'm still in the game because of
Yeah.
my ability to say no.
Oh, I love that you said that because like you said earlier, it just more women need to hear that. It's just so
Yes.
important. It's such an important message for people to get across. And
Yes.
that's
And
really speaking to like the longevity aspect, which is I think everybody's ultimate goal. I mean, anybody I know who does jujitsu and really sticks with it doesn't really plan to quit. They
no.
plan to do it for longevity, and it's one of the martial arts where you can
Yes.
because of our safety protocols we put in place in our tapping system and everything like that.
Yes.
But you do have your due diligence as well, which is like setting those boundaries, saying no, and prioritizing safety. So I think those are all amazing crossovers from climbing to jujitsu. I think that's really, really important.
Boundaries, right? Like safety
Yes.
boundaries. And then on just a physical level, I called my camps hips and grips because both sports are hips and grips dominant.
Mm,
And I try, not always successful, and it depends on the climb or even, the role, but I try to always have 3 points of contact on my partner's body or on the wall. That allows me to have connection points to be able to
mm,
stabilize my position before either submission or my next move. But
yeah.
the crossover is pretty stunning actually when you look at it. If you are out of position, you will fall off the wall. If you're
Yes.
out of position in jujitsu, you're probably not going to get that submission.
Hmm.
So, position before submission or before next move is critical in both sports. So, my
So yeah,
climbing,
let's dive into that just a little bit
yeah,
because that was
it's
kind of
cool.
where I was going to next as far as the crossover and I mean the idea of the hips and grips. If
Yeah.
you want to dive into that a little bit more as far as that relationship of the hips and the
Mhm.
grips and how you see that crossover and that relationship there.
Yeah, it's funny, like, because of my climbing background, I look at various body parts as climbing holds.
That's so funny.
Yes,
I
and
gotta start doing that. I haven't done that yet, but
yeah,
it's so interesting. Yeah,
it's
I gotta
really, really
integrate that.
interesting. Yeah, it's a fun way of looking at the game.
Yeah.
Um, Also, I would say I utilize grips maybe a little bit differently, and that actually is more with my feet.
Oh
My
yeah.
feet grips because of how active, and I kind of make little tripod feet like this, but I have sloth toes from climbing, and those sloth toes have been very, very helpful in certain parts of my game.
Mm,
And so I think that we emphasize so much, the classic four finger grip, with the sleeve or pistol
yeah.
grips or whatever. Climbing has such a large array of grips that
Yeah.
I actually incorporate sloper hold grips sometimes and different grips from climbing into jujitsu.
Yeah, I have done that too. Yeah, I've definitely noticed me like naturally doing that, which has been interesting.
Yeah.
Like I find myself just using a grip and I'm like, this isn't like a traditional jujitsu grip, but like it's working because I understand through the experience of rock climbing, just like kind of how I've been manipulating my anatomy,
Yes.
and like how it
Yes.
kind of works. So that's really
100%.
interesting.
I love that. I love that you've seen that too. And, uh, you know, climbing is a very active foot sport. And jujitsu is as well, but I think it's only lately that I've been hearing people talk in the world of jujitsu as far as mobility, etc., about active feet. I
Hmm.
really haven't heard that until recently in the sport. And active feet are so important in climbing. And
Hmm.
so I feel like my toes and my small intrinsic foot muscles have been honed to be
Yes.
very strong from climbing. So
Yeah.
I can hang off of somebody with my toes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can just be like a little baby sloth.
Yeah.
I also like sometimes I look at people as climbing people.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, they're in turtle position. We're in an interesting position together. How do I climb out and around this little tunnel here? It's like I kind of think of things in that way a lot.
Huh. That's a really
Yeah,
interesting perspective.
yeah, it's kind of fun. And um, sometimes when a role doesn't feel fun for me, I'm like, okay, if this person was a rock wall, what would I do? And then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I would just heel hook here and then I would go around here and then I would do this. And I'm like, that worked. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it is kind of fun. We have heel hooks in climbing, we have knee bars in climbing, we have arm bars in
Yeah.
climbing. So there's also actual lingo that
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
across the two sports as well.
Yeah. That's really, really cool. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So, are there any specific training or climbing drills rather that you think would translate to jujitsu, or is it just climbing for those who are listeners who have never done climbing, or just maybe some experienced climbers listening
Yeah.
to fine tune? Like I know that I integrate in my climbing specifically, just like different things that work endurance or things that work grips, like
Oh, yeah.
traversing. I really like traversing.
I
Um,
love that you love
yeah, that's
traversing.
like one
It's
of my favorite things because like I love that I have the safety of not being too high and I'm
yeah.
just trying not to fall, but it's
Yeah.
like but I'm still trying not to fall. So I mean, I get cardio workouts in, but I'm just curious like if are
Love
there
that.
any climbing drills or like bouldering versus top rope that you feel translate really well to jujitsu?
So, a 500 gold stars on the traversing because I actually think it is the most neglected skill in climbing, and that's usually where I start.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh wow, it's like my favorite. It's like my warm up every time I go. I'm
I
like, "Oh, I
love
can't wait."
traversing. I love that you do that. And I love that you naturally were just aware enough to know that that was something that your body needed to do. A lot of people don't like it because they only want to move up or down. But
Mm,
like jujitsu, climbing has many planes,
yeah.
especially when you get outside. And
Yeah.
traversing is a big deal. It also really develops those intrinsic foot muscles and the
Yeah.
active feet. So I love that. I would say that's number one, honestly.
Okay.
That's like one of the top, I would say, first day or two drills we do.
That's
If I have like
crazy.
a private lesson student. So I'm just like, wow, that's
I
so
love that,
cool.
that's what you recommend because one, I love it to
Yeah,
death. And
that's
then two, I
great.
do feel like I've been noticing inconsistently climbing for months, uh, almost a year really, but like translating that to my jujitsu. And I noticed like my climbing's also improved through traversing because um like things like pressing my hips against the wall, or like overarm reaches, to try to get
Yes.
something, I've just I feel more safe doing that, knowing I'm closer to the ground
I
versus
love
like
that.
playing with that when I'm mid wall, and I know there's
Yes,
a risk of falling. I'm less likely to be like, let me see where that takes me. So by kind
I
of
love
putting in
that.
those reps in a safer way, which I think
Yes,
I'm kind of alluding to, that kind of translates to jujitsu, right? Like kind of putting reps in a more safe, controlled way, aka
yeah,
drilling,
100%.
translates to when you go to live rolling,
I
you're able
love
to
that.
apply that better.
I love, Natty, that you just right off the bat started that way. People are always like rolling their eyes and like, oh man, I just have to walk side to side. And I'm like, well, if it's that easy, start doing it and see if you can stay on the wall. Because
Yeah.
as you've already figured out where your center of gravity is,
Hmm.
right? Your hips are in relation to the wall. Translation for jujitsu in relation to your partner is
Hmm.
going to either make you come off the wall or stick into the wall. And that's
Hmm.
kind of the same. I see a lot of overlap there with guard retention, right?
Mm.
So, where your hips are centered in relation to your partner makes all the difference. If they're
Mm.
already passing you and your hips are over here, we've got a problem, right?
Yes.
If we're trying to stay, say, in a closed guard, maybe for a sit up hip bump sweep, unless our hips are connected into the wall, i.e., their hips,
Yes.
with that same motion, we're
Hmm.
not going to create the momentum to get the sweep.
Yes. Oh, so
It,
good. This is so
yeah,
great.
right? It's so much fun to see all the correlations. And I honestly, I try, and this is something that I don't push on people, but I try to get them used to falling right off the bat,
Hmm.
right off the bat, because falling is something that nobody likes to do, right? Everybody's scared of falling. I've been climbing for 23 years. I'm freaking petrified. It's so damn
Hmm.
scary,
Yeah.
especially outside if I'm doing a big wall or a multi pitch, or it's so scary. And so, what I tell people is, you trust me as your belayer. I want you to climb as high as you can until you start to feel the butterflies in your tummy. And then I want you to take a fall and I'm going to catch you. And they're like, I can't. And I'm like, you can, but we're going to work our way up to this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
thing is, if you can rip the band aid off as far as like conquering your fear of falling or conquering your ability to deal with your fear of
Mm.
falling, climbing becomes very pleasant and less scary.
Yeah.
It's
Definitely.
it's kind of like maybe being a woman and rolling with the big dude for the first time,
Hmm.
right? And this is something that I was just on another podcast last week. We were talking about the pros and cons of women's classes. And being the classic Gemini that I am, I see it both sides. I
Yeah.
totally see pros and cons both sides. I
Yeah.
never had a women's class coming up. So I'm kind of talking from an admittedly skewed viewpoint.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I tell women, if you are simply only staying in a women's class, that's okay for sport jujitsu.
Yeah.
Okay. But for self defense jujitsu, not okay. Because
Mm.
you
Yeah.
have to know that whatever it is you're learning is going to be applicable against a
Yeah.
big dude,
Yeah. Absolutely.
right? And if that's not your interest in jujitsu, if you're like, I don't care about the self defense or combatives aspect of it, then don't roll with men. But if you're doing this and saying it's for self defense and you're only staying in a women's class, mm,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be tricky.
It's
And
going to be
so
that false confidence.
false confidence. And I get that there's 100 different reasons to simply only stay in a women's class. If you have a trauma history, I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
But that was something that she and I talked about last week on a different podcast. It's kind of like you have to take falls, you have to roll with the big dudes,
Yeah.
right? Even when
Exactly.
it's scary, even when it's scary. Because once you rip that band-aid off, you realize there are big dudes who are cool that can roll with you,
Yeah. Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
It's the same thing like taking a fall. Once you take a couple of falls and you feel that little cushy, somebody caught me, it's like, okay, I am safe. That's
Yes.
the mantra I offer to private lesson students in climbing or jujitsu. I am safe.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I tell people all the time. It's so important. It's integral with
Huge.
breath work and, it's so important for both of those sports. That's really amazing.
I love that you do breath work so much. And I feel like the breath work affirms to the body on a somatic level that you're
Yes.
safe.
Yes, 100%. And that's what we need. We can't just mentally convince ourselves. We have to actually feel the experience of being safe.
Preach.
Even if you're in the bottom of a mount or, on the wall, you actually, I mean, in that moment, you are not actually in danger. I do think that
Mhm.
there was an important piece of perspective for jujitsu players where it's like, I love that you came from rock climbing first because you are in a legit life or death situation versus
Yeah,
jujitsu feels like a life or death situation,
yeah,
but actually isn't.
it's
Like you
not.
were saying, it's just
No.
breaking your arm. It's the sensation of getting choked out, but you're
Yeah,
actually not going to die. Like there is
right.
a visceral fear with climbing because it's very real you could fall off a mountain, so
Yeah.
like you do need to. So I think it's really cool to have that. And I think that lends itself to maybe for those listeners who haven't ever thought of rock climbing, but like try a couple classes, just see how you respond, see if your
Your
experience in
nervous system.
jiu-jitsu, like
Yeah.
learning how to calm your mind and body in that chaos, see how it applies. You might
Yes.
think you're doing a good job, but when you put that into a different scenario, maybe it does work or maybe it does cross over, but maybe you actually realize and it's highlighted to you that, oh, I actually have a little bit of work to do here. Like actually, now
Love
that I'm
it.
in an actually real scenario, I have a little bit more work to do, and that can offer that reflection and mirror of the work that needs to get done, which is always the inner work.
Maddie, I love that you said that. I love your holistic approach to jujitsu and to working with your clients. And what I've always advocated at the hips and grips camps is for women to bring journals, and we have kind of a decompression session at the end of each
Mm,
night, because it's like some women who were high level competitors in jujitsu were terrified on top
ah,
rope on like a 5-6, like
yeah,
crying level scared.
yeah.
Some women like myself, I'm like, if I see a big wall, I'm like, oh, it's not coming at me. Thank God. This is where I can
Yeah,
actually
right.
relax. Like, jujitsu is way more scary for me at this point
That's
than
so
climbing.
funny.
Totally more scary for me because it's moving. It's just like
Yeah,
this
yeah,
crazy spin cycle of chaos. The wall is static, it's not moving. The
yeah.
only chaos that I have to deal with is my own.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in jujitsu, you are sort of, I know how people say you're only dealing with your own chaos. I think yes and no. You
Yeah.
are kind of dealing with somebody else's energy too.
Yeah. I mean,
And
it's two
they,
nervous systems colliding.
well put, perfectly put. And so to me, dealing with somebody else's chaos on top of my own
Hmm.
feels more overwhelming than
Yeah.
dealing with my own.
Mm.
Because there I'm like, okay, I know how to breathe. I may be scared, but I'm safe. And all I have is control of myself. But I also have to control somebody else in jujitsu, which I
Yeah.
mean, let's just talk about the white belt D1 wrestler guy.
Yeah,
That
right.
feels very chaotic to me and sometimes scary.
Yeah.
And I don't, thankfully, gratefully, I don't have a trauma history. 2 out of 3 women do. And
Yeah.
so, what I try to share with people on the mat is you see all these women out here, 2 out of 3 of them statistically have a trauma history. This is scary shit for them. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even care if they're brown or black belts. I've seen black belt females have a panic attack on the mat because something triggered them
Yeah,
from a
exactly.
past trauma history that they probably thought had been healed, or,
Hmm.
that was under wraps at that point of being a black belt. But like, I was taught my entire life as a child, stay away from big men, especially big men who are trying to choke you, and here we are paying now to do it.
Yeah.
You're like, hi, would anybody like to choke me?
Yeah, I know, right?
Think about it. That's the craziest thing ever.
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, wow, I think rock climbing's crazy. I'm like, really? You should see what I do on my lunch break.
Yeah, I
This is
know,
the
right?
craziest shit I've ever heard. I literally, I sit there and I wonder, I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me?
Yeah,
Like,
well, you
what?
mentioned it earlier, and it's that cortisol spiking sport, the adrenaline rush. So there's definitely some of
Huh?
that in everybody. I feel like if you're in climbing, or
Oh, yeah.
jujitsu, and definitely both, you're definitely an adrenaline junkie. And I am admittedly an
100%.
adrenaline junkie.
It's an addiction.
Well,
It is.
actually, to that point, I did want to address and
Yeah.
transition a little bit into kind of that idea of the adrenaline
Yeah.
and the mental load, the physical load that both of those sports
Yeah.
inherently have. What do you
Yeah.
do to balance training between both of those sports, and the
Yeah.
demands of those sports without burning out or overtraining? And do you approach recovery differently?
I teach hot yoga, and so that is a huge, and I know you do it as well. We have a lot in common with our interests. That is kind of the hub in the wheel for me that
Yeah.
all other sports come out of, if that makes
Mm,
sense. Um, I also am a big open water swimmer, and the soothing,
mm,
calming aspect of the water it kind of chills out that fire, if that makes sense.
yeah. It's
So
super grounding.
it is, and
Yeah.
it's quiet, and I'm
Hmm.
alone with my thoughts. There isn't, with hot yoga, I have to say a dialogue, there's music, there's external stimulus.
Hmm.
With open water swimming, it's just you can't hear anything underwater.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah.
nothing. And so it's kind of my way of sort of resetting my nervous system. I would say
Mm.
hot yoga as well, but there is still a heating element to it. So, from a Chinese medicine
Yeah.
perspective,
Yeah.
climbing is heating, jujitsu is heating, hot yoga is heating. Even though I feel very relaxed after hot yoga, it's still a heating, natured exercise.
Yeah.
So I would say that honestly, open water swimming is like where I get my calm.
Hmm. I love that. Yeah, that's definitely the balance.
Yeah, it's cooling to me. And it's
Yeah.
a solo sport. Everything else, there's people involved.
Yeah. That's a
And
great natural regulation and
yeah,
just like grounding, relaxation, cooling. I think
I
that
need
is really
something
important.
alone. I need
Yeah.
to be alone sometimes. And that's my outlet for that because jujitsu, you need a partner. Climbing, you need a partner. They're both very social sports. Hot yoga, in a room full of people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the swimming is the only thing that I have to myself for myself.
I love that. Those are
Yeah.
great. And I mean, like you said, I've been religiously doing hot yoga for the past month and a half now. And I did it for
Nice.
years. I did it for several years, but I had a big hiatus transitioning
Yes.
from Philly to Texas. And
Nice.
the original driver was just rehabbing my hip. But, getting back into it, I just realized how much I loved it, missed it, and how beneficial it really was. And um, that has been just a huge piece of my recovery, integrating that into my weekly schedule too. So it's really interesting, that you also are an advocate for hot yoga. So maybe
Yeah.
guys, it's something that you give a go and try out the hot yoga as well.
Yeah.
I really believe in my current regimen so much, which is basically rock climbing, jujitsu, and hot yoga, and a couple lifts here and there as
Why do
well.
you live in Texas? Why aren't you in
I
Idaho? And
know, I
like we
know,
would just
right?
hang out every day.
Seriously. So like that regimen has been just, I feel like the perfect trifecta for just my physical, mental, all of them require just such a deep connection to your body. And
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm really just in flow with myself constantly because I'm just doing
One or
sports
the other.
require that deep connection and awareness, no
Yeah.
distraction. The one thing I
Yeah.
love about the rock climbing is that I can't be distracted or I'll fall from the wall, right? So like I can't
100%.
be distracted. Same thing with jujitsu. Like I can't be
There's
distracted. Hot
consequence.
yoga, I can't be distracted. I will fall out of posture. So like I've really
Yes.
trained my presence and attention, which translates it performance, in just a lot of different areas of your
Love it.
life. Just, so it's been so amazing. And I
Love
have,
that.
and we talked about fear, so I want to dive into that just a little bit more because we
Mhm.
talked about kind of fear of falling, which I think was really important, but also
Totally.
just like in regard to feel of fear of losing or failing. How do you personally navigate that in jiu-jitsu and rock climbing? Like what's like a mantra or something that you do to kind of navigate those things if you can't get a certain grade that you're working on, or in jujitsu you're not able to hit a technique. I'd love to just hear how
Mhm.
you personally navigate that.
That's a powerful question. Climbing is 99% failing. If you're climbing at a very high level or at a professional level, climbing is 99% failing slash falling. And so by the time I got to jujitsu, I had been failing for so long. And
Mm,
so I I am very much okay with failing now because I had so many years of falls. And
yeah.
so I feel like that mentality of understanding that if I'm going to be climbing to my limit from bottom to top, it's probably going to take me a lot of falls. And like knowing that and knowing that that's part of the process. They call
Yes.
climbing clean, right? If you climb from bottom to top without a fall. And that's like the goal of every climber. But if you are truly pushing your limits and pushing how hard you're climbing, inevitably you're going to be projecting a route.
Yeah.
Quite a
Yeah.
while, right? That's what we
Yeah.
call it, projecting. And if you're projecting a route because you're climbing at your maximum, chances are you're going to be climbing to fatigue or failure, which means
Yes.
you're going to pop off the wall. And so
Yeah.
you have to be good with failing a lot. And
Mm.
I believe that bringing that mentality into jujitsu, like one of the greatest compliments I've ever gotten from fellow competitors is they're like, you are the happiest loser I have ever met in my life. I mean, A, nobody's paying me to be here, right?
Yeah.
Some point this has got to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't see a second place or third place on the podium as a death sentence. I'm just projecting.
Yeah.
I'm just
Mm.
projecting. I'm going to be
Oh, I
taking
love that reframe. Yeah, it's so good.
projecting to get to first place if that's what's important to you. But it's okay to take some falls and to stand at second and third place, especially if you see the fact that this is merely a project route. And at some point, you are going to get to the top.
Oh, that's so good. I
Yeah.
think a
And
lot of high performers, people who put pressure on themselves, similar minded like me who struggled with that for many years. I think
yeah,
it's a really good reframe to really think about. Obviously, you might not understand it quite if you're not in rock climbing.
yeah,
So that's why I think, take a few sessions, go to an open gym and, try it out and learn some of the lingo over time, a couple months,
yeah,
and you're going to definitely understand a little bit more when you circle back to this episode what she's referring to. But I
falls.
mean, for those who are experienced listening to this or have had experience, I think that's just a golden nugget right there.
Yeah. And I feel like this is sort of relevant in this way, but I have low dopamine. Like they've done studies on high level, what they call adventure athletes, kiteboarders, base jumpers, climbers. They almost all of them have low dopamine
Hmm.
levels. So they use their sport as a way to get their fix. It's an addiction because you're
Yeah. Huh.
constantly trying to raise your dopamine through these rushes
Yeah.
of adrenaline and cortisol spikes. So, like, make no mistake about it. Like, if you are climbing at a very high level or base jumping or whatever, skydiving, you have low dopamine. And what was interesting for me is I'm the middle kid. I've got the penchant for the dark side. The other two were valedictorians in before
Yeah.
curfew. Oh, I was sneaking out. I was climbing trees. I was making out with boys in high school. I was everything my parents were just like, I put them through hell, okay? And what they sat me down when I was 15 and they handed me a book called Positive Addiction.
Hmm.
They said, look, every middle kid has died of alcoholism on your dad's side of the family, which I take after the most.
Yeah.
You have a penchant for addiction.
Yeah.
I want you to read this book because we are going to find something that you can be addicted
Mm.
to make you a better person. We already see it. You have an addictive personality.
Yeah.
That can be harnessed as the author
Yes.
of, of Positive Addiction talks about. You cannot become Michael Jordan unless you have an OCD type of addictive loop. It,
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to be so addicted to dribbling a ball
Yeah.
for 10,000 hours. Otherwise, you will never become Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my parents were like, you're either going to end up in a meth house or you're
Yeah.
going to end up being the Picasso of something. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
like, you're on the edge, girl. And like, they
Yeah.
said that to me when I was 15. They're like, you got a little Angelina in you, like a little Angelina Jolie. Like, you got to pay for the dark side, girl. And like, we've got to funnel this in a way that's going to make you a contributing citizen, not a meth house. So
Oh, I
like,
love that. I mean, it's so nice to have that support.
yeah, and my parents could see it a mile away.
Yeah.
And jujitsu is addicting.
Yes.
CrossFit is addicting. Climbing is addicting. I needed a sport that I could be addicted to.
Yeah.
And the failure keeps you addicted.
Yeah.
Circling the
Absolutely.
wagons.
Absolutely.
If you keep failing, then you haven't made it to the top yet. That's a dopamine spike for people like me.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, wait a second. I have to fail a lot, which keeps me addicted to the process
Mm-hmm.
until I make it to the top. That addiction dopamine loop translated well over to jujitsu. I've had
Yeah.
2 surgeries. I'm almost 50. I've been in this for 14 years. Like I said, 99% of the time, I was the only female for the first 8 years. You have to be an addicted human being to go through all of that shit and keep, here I am, still going.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean? There has to be an addiction cycle, and that is not a bad word if you know how to channel it
Yes.
intentionally and properly. And so I have an addiction issue, but it serves me well in sports where you're going to fail 100,000 hours.
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
must be addicted to jujitsu in order to get to your level. You must be. If you're not going to last.
Yeah. Exactly. I think that's a really great share that you did, and I think that that would definitely help people just reframe those fears, and just
Yeah.
reframing failure is something I talk about a lot, but I'd love to hear your perspective about it and your experience with that. And like I said, kind of seeing it as a project until you fail enough. Like it's always like failing forward, right? Like how, like become obsessed with, I think we're so obsessed with becoming obsessed with winning, but actually the biggest shift I made that really helped me win more was when I started to create this mantra for myself of become obsessed with failing. I actually
I
became
love
so
that. Oh my
obsessed.
God, you're my person. I say
I
that
know, girl.
all
I
the
love you.
time. You are my person. I just had a blue belt lady call me and she said, Almine, can I take you out to coffee? I need to talk to somebody about jujitsu. And I said, sure. And so we went out to coffee and she's in a different class time than me. I barely know her. We go to the same gym, but you know how the morning people don't know the evening
Yeah.
people and vice versa. And so I was kind of surprised when she called me, but she said, I just need to talk to somebody who's been doing this for a while. I said, sure. We go out to coffee. She said, I want to quit and here are all the reasons I want to quit. And I listened to her for about an hour and she had legitimate reasons,
Yeah.
right? They were okay. They were good reasons to quit. And I said to her, are you addicted to failing? That is my only question for you. And she said, I don't know. I said, you must know if you want to continue.
That's so
You must
good.
know. That is my only question for anyone who is considering quitting jujitsu. And I don't mean a hiatus. There's babies, there's all kinds of things,
Yeah,
just life
yeah,
that happens. But I mean quitting jujitsu. I said, if you don't know if you're addicted to failure, this is not the sport for you.
yeah. Or that needs to be the question that you find clarity on before deciding and moving forward. I think that was
Yeah.
a huge shift that I made that made a big difference in my performance. And a big reason was I took more risks. I think that, and that helped me progress faster because
Yes.
being obsessed with, I had to reshift, like for somebody who's literally, I would be not petrified, but almost immobilized through failure. Like
Mhm.
my story is long, but basically I was used to winning a lot,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
jiu-jitsu was when I started losing. And
Wow.
I didn't understand loss. I didn't understand like
Oh
for
my
me, like my
God, that is
mindset.
powerful.
Oh yeah, like my mindset was just so like losing doesn't happen. Like it just isn't in my world. I just didn't know what losing was.
Hmm.
And in jiu-jitsu, I was introduced to that very quick. And so that was a big mental struggle all throughout the belts. And
Wow.
as I've become a black belt, which is a white belt again, I really it
Love
started
that.
more at brown belt, but I really started to shift into how fast and how often can I fail? Like, what if I shifted my goal from winning to just being obsessed with failing as fast as
Getting
I
the
can?
chills.
And so what that did was it allowed me to take more risks because when I'm training, I'm just going for shit. Because I'm like, you know what? Like I'm not gonna know, like I'm not gonna have it perfectly curated to figure out what's going to work before I just take action. I need to just go. And if I get past, I get past. If I do this, I find out more about myself and how I play the game and what I need to do through just that going and that action. And I will say, the listeners
Mm.
are the first to hear this, but I just recently, like in the past couple years, started working with Barambolos. It wasn't a big part of my game, but I hit my first legit Barambolo in live training
Mhm.
from like a De La I mean, it was full intentional pull guard, De La Hiva, right to a Barambola, right to a back take, rear naked choke. I was screaming in my head. And that's just another day on the map. But to me, it was
Oh, that's a big deal.
tens of thousands of
Big
reps
deal.
of just
Yes.
trying and failing and failing. I've tried it for several weeks of just fail, fail, smash, fail,
Yeah.
smash, fail. And I'm like, keep going. And then just it clicked. And the other day it happened. And I was like, holy shit.
Yes.
They say that. There's so many quotes out
Yes.
there about failing 1,000 times. It's the 1,001, and that's where it is. So I just think that whole conversation about failing and navigating that was so important. And
Yes.
I want to shift a little bit into
Love that.
more of
Wow.
the female aspect of being in the sport, but I just wanted to kind of share my piece in that because that
God,
was
that is powerful.
thanks. Thanks.
Yes. And congratulations on hitting that. That's freaking awesome, girl.
Dude, hitting a berimbolo has been a goal of mine
Awesome.
for years. And just like in climbing, to bring the conversation, even with climbs, it can be at first you want to kind of just do the climb, but
Yeah.
like how I see more success is sometimes really breaking it down, hold by hold and angle by angle and work my way up. Like instead of focusing on like I have to finish A to Z, it's like let me break down how to do it, just this first step and then this first step.
Passing the guard,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Same thing
Like,
in jiu-jitsu. Like I just need to break down, like that's the end goal, but there's a
right.
lot of steps before getting to that end goal. I'm not just going to go from A to Z. I need to really
Yep.
and not rush it or use
No,
strength.
no,
Really
exactly.
technically figure out how do I position myself to be able to get here using the least amount of energy because I'm the most aligned,
Yeah,
you know?
like so passing the guard, right? Unless you're gonna do some kind of like highlight reel, cartwheel pass over the
Yeah.
head, whatever move, usually you're passing in increments, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at some point you're passing, ankles, knees, hips,
Yes.
coming up to the sternum. Like there's a process, like you're saying, of breaking it down in smaller steps. And sometimes you have to. Sometimes somebody's guard is just so amazing. You're just like, all right, I'm not interested in making chest to chest connection. I'm interested in passing his knees right now.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
like these small wins, if you will. Like if you're climbing a big wall or a multi pitch, I can only think of it one pitch at a time. I can't think of this huge 8-hour climb. I can't think
Yeah,
of that. I have to think
100%.
of, yeah, let's nail the first 100 feet. Now the next 100 feet. Now the
Mhm.
next 100 feet. You have to think that way. Otherwise, it's overwhelming.
100%,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
So
I
I'd
love
love for
that.
you to share a little bit about, we have a few things I'd like to cover, but
Okay. Yeah.
let's talk about maybe some similarities that you notice in the community of climbers and grapplers, as well as any advice that you'd give to women who are curious to climb to try climbing or jujitsu, but maybe
Oh,
feel intimidated. You know, because
wow.
both of these sports are, you know, there's probably more women becoming in them, but they
Yep.
are two traditionally male-dominated sports. So,
Yep.
like, what are the similarities that you notice in the community culture between both, and maybe any words of wisdom or advice for those who feel intimidated to try either one?
That is gosh dang it, girl, you just have the best questions. My personality is as such that you heard it was like, well, no girl made it here. And I was like, well, I'm gonna fix that, right? And I get that that is not, the
That's
norm.
not the masses. Yeah.
That
I
that's
was I
not
was
the
similar
masses,
too.
right? Like I
Basically, I
get
got
that.
armbarred. Yeah, I got armbarred and
Ah,
like was choked, and then that's what made me sign up. You know, most people run
right.
away, but for me I was like, no, this bullshit isn't happening again. I'm going to master this shit, and this is
I
not
got to figure
not
this out.
today, bitches.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And this kind of gets again into the conversation I had on last week's podcast. Um, Women's classes might be a good on ramp, or as
Mhm.
I jokingly call it, gateway drug class
Yeah.
into co-ed classes. Again, a lot of women come into the sport with a trauma history. They're
Yes.
using jujitsu as a way to regain empowerment and confidence after potentially one or a series of traumatic events.
Yeah.
And oops, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry, I didn't lose you there. Um, and I think that a women's class might be helpful in that scenario.
Yeah.
Um, Now, again, my main concern is if the women's class becomes a crutch to where she doesn't start to explore outside of that,
Yes.
um, and make sure that she understands what's happening from a self-defense perspective,
Mhm.
particularly if she is using jujitsu as a way to regain confidence after a trauma. Like
Yes,
we
yes,
need to
yes.
test drive this, right?
Yeah.
In real time with safe male partners,
Yeah.
right? Um, I jokingly say what I'm about to say tongue in cheek. I want to really put out there that I honestly have no judgment one way or another about anybody's journey and how it goes.
Yeah.
But I've always joked and said there's two kinds of women at women's camps. There's women who generally um have come up in a women's class environment and have stayed there. And
Mhm.
then there's women like myself who were the only girl
Mhm.
at the gym for a long time. And
Yeah.
so you kind of almost see these two groups of women, and we kind of awkwardly sit around the table at night having dinner, but our journeys are like polar opposite.
Yeah.
Was like I was kind of the tomboy
Yeah.
girl that came up with the dudes, right?
Yeah.
Then there were the other women that maybe came from a different background than I did. And again, I want to reiterate, I'm very grateful and feel blessed to have not had a trauma history. I don't know
Yeah.
what that's like. It's a horrible thing that women have to contend with. And I think that jujitsu is a beautiful practice for women who are regaining confidence and power back. But
Yes.
it's funny because I've gone to women's camps, and the women who stay and don't venture out of women's classes all huddle in a corner together and talk to each other. And then the women who came up with dudes are in the other corner. And
Mhm.
it's kind of funny. It's like
Yeah.
it's these two different worlds amongst women, even in jujitsu.
Yeah.
Because like there's women like me, and I try not to put this on other women. Um, but a part of me is like, I never had a women's class. So a part
Mhm.
of me sometimes is like, girl, that's no. Like, no. Like what if a big dude were to do X, Y, and Z to you? And then they're like, what? Because all they've been doing is training with female partners.
Yeah.
But for some women, that's what they need.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
like at my gym, this was new to me. I moved to a red state from a blue state. And it's more conservative here in general. And so
Yeah.
there are actually some women that go to the women's class at my gym who, due to their religion, cannot roll with men. And
Yeah.
I've never encountered that.
Yeah.
That's new. So I think it really kind of depends on what, like, your why. Why are you coming into jujitsu? Is it to learn self-defense? Is it to find camaraderie with other women? Is it,
Hmm.
um I think you need to ask yourself your why, because that's also going to sort of dictate how you train
Yeah.
and with what population of people you train with. Is it going to be all women in the women's class? It's I have, just due to my personality type, I want to submit big dudes. I'm also tall. I'm
Yeah.
5'10". I'm
Yeah.
not a tiny woman either, to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
so it's important for me to know, because I like to travel, I like to do things, that I can defend myself against a big dude. That
Yeah.
is a why for me.
Yeah.
A why for me, although I think this should change over time for me, because it's not healthy that I only train with dudes either. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I find that balance.
Yeah.
Um, my why isn't to find camaraderie with other women.
Hmm.
It's not. And again, I think for my own well-being, that should change, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Because
Absolutely.
I don't know that that's healthy either. That's an extreme as well, where I only train with men.
Yeah.
That's not very balanced.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so it's,
100%. I grew up a tomboy as well, and
yeah,
um, I definitely was okay with not training with women. I don't come
right.
into like for me, it's not about camaraderie, it's about self-improvement. Like it's totally a personal thing for me. It's me versus
Totally.
me. Um, but an aspect I think all humans and women have is a sense of community,
Yes.
connection,
Yes.
belonging. And I
Yes.
realize that I do have a part to play in that too. Like if I want to belong, I need to allow myself to be open to belonging.
Beautifully,
You
it
know, like
could not
I
have
need
said
to
it
I need
better.
to
Beautifully
allow
put.
myself, put myself in a position to belong, which I didn't do for many
Yeah.
years. I was always keeping myself on the outside because I never felt invited. I was different than the rest. And so I kind of just said, well, it's just me and the boys. And, when somebody comes, they'll come. But I realized I was still, every relationship is two ways. So like even if it's
Yes.
you versus a group, it's still a relationship, you versus the group of the females. It's like, well, am I actually opening myself up to them? And I
Yes.
realized the big reason, I mean, fast forward and cut this short, but essentially, I through that introspection, I realized I had a lot of sister wounds, which is the reason why I never felt safe and put myself out there because I didn't want to be hurt. But I realized although that's true and I get to honor and respect that experience I had, what do I want to create moving forward? Do I still want to keep this cycle going or do I
Yep.
want to have that sisterhood and connection? And so like
Yep.
it's up to me to open my heart a little bit
Yep. Yep.
to put
Let down the
myself in that
walls.
position. And if that
Let down
means
the walls.
that I need
Yep.
to adjust my training a little when I'm training with people, for me, it
Yep.
was like, because that was a huge part of my personal growth with jujitsu, because I came in for the adrenaline. I came in for the inner child release of anger and rage. And that's
Yep.
how I trained and how
Amen.
I still train. But I have much more modulation now that I'm like more mature, emotionally, mentally, black belt, like I'm much more mature and I can modulate that. My favorite kind of jujitsu is balls to the walls. I mean, that's my favorite kind of jujitsu. So, but
I love that you said that.
if I want women to feel safe with me, to feel comfortable, and I realize and recognize meet them where they're at, and like not everybody's ready to um be met with my intensity. So I have to kind of modulate, and it doesn't mean that I'm being soft or,
No,
not
you're
getting
that dial.
training out of it. I'm just using the
Yeah.
style,
Yeah, you're using the
and
dial. And that is a really powerful thing you just said about letting down those walls. And it's ironic because I started hips and grips camps for women. And I realized about second camp in, I was doing women's camps because I hadn't let myself experience that world of just women on the mat. And that it was something I kind of subconsciously craved,
Yeah,
but
girl.
I
We are the
didn't.
same in two different bodies, I swear.
I 100% agree. I love this. But I wanted to do it on my terms, if that
Yeah.
made sense. Like, I actually also realized that I was starting the camps for women because I only felt safe interacting with women in groups
Mm.
if I started it.
I mean, I agree with you, and I feel the exact same way
Does
because
that
I
make
knew that.
sense?
I think it's because like you get to I don't want to say control in a negative way, but you get to
Yeah.
create the
Create the
culture.
environment.
You get to create the culture that you want to be a part of. And that's why I
Yes.
started a business focused on women. And which is
Yes.
for people who knew me growing up, like that would be bizarre. Like you never even hung out with women. What are you talking about? Now your whole business is about women. You
Yeah.
do women retreats, you do all this stuff with women. And it's like, well, I created those communities because it was something I always wanted, but I
Yeah.
didn't want to be forced into an environment and like something that was already established that didn't
That
vibe
you
with
didn't have
me.
control over as
Yeah,
far
like
as
didn't it
like,
wasn't my vibe.
yes.
You know, I don't want to just be part
Yes.
of a group of women. Like I don't want to just be a part of a group of women, which is why I never
Same.
did. Because I was like,
Same.
I don't like what's going on here. I don't like the
Yeah.
gossip. I don't like the
The
complaining, the
backstabbing,
excuses.
the
Like,
all that stuff. And
yeah.
this is something that Shanti and I talked about last week on her podcast as well, is that the day and night difference of a sport with hierarchy versus a sport without hierarchy is very apparent to me.
Yeah.
Women in climbing are nonstop cheerleaders for each other. In
I love that
20,
about climbing. I love it.
I
Like
do
everybody
too.
is cheering each other on constantly. It's like such an
Totally.
amazing vibe environment.
In 23 years of climbing, I have never, which I can't say this about any other sport, maybe the open water swimming, but it's because I'm not interacting with anybody. But I have never, ever seen drama,
Hmm.
ever, amongst women in climbing. I've been to climbing camps. I've never seen it. The minute you have a hierarchy structure
Hmm.
of ranking and
Yeah.
leadership versus like black belts to white belts to brown
Yeah.
belts, it gets really weird.
Hmm.
Hierarchy is not really, in my opinion, how women function. Women function in kind of a round table format. Like, if
Mm.
you think of like the old matriarchal longhouses of the coast native tribes along the west coast.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of like the Cherokee grandmothers.
Hmm.
They were actually their government of the west coast tribes, but they were called longhouses, and they were basically round tables of grandmothers
Hmm.
saying, how are we going to implement policy in our tribe that benefits 7 generations ahead?
Yeah.
That was a matriarchal concept that came from a Cherokee longhouse on the East Coast, the 7 generations ahead concept. Women
Hmm.
function better in a round table discussion format. When you put them in hierarchy formats, things can get ugly,
Oh yeah.
ugly, ugly. And when I did a safari in South Africa, my mom's from South Africa, and I try and go back there every other year and see my family. And the last time I went back, I did my first safari there.
It's incredible.
It was life changing. It was one of, I've been to 22 countries, and this was one of the most life changing experiences I have ever had in my life because it gave me context for females in hierarchy. If you
Huh.
watch female lions, they will kill each other to the death for hierarchy
Wow.
status. They will kill each other. The male lions, they just sit out there and yawn and protect the circumference of the
Yeah.
pride. They actually don't do a lot. They
Yeah.
really don't. The females, though, they're the hunters, but
Yeah.
they will kill each other for matriarchal status of hierarchy. When you put women in
Mhm.
hierarchy structures with ranking, things get wonky. And
That's
I think it's
crazy.
It is crazy. And when I watch them, like these female lions were just fighting to become queen of the pride, I was like, yeah. But you looked at other animals, in the safari that didn't have hierarchy structures.
Yeah.
It didn't work that way. So
Yeah.
jujitsu is a very strange sport for women, in my opinion, because the ranking system goes against our biology.
Mm.
It goes against our intrinsic nature of how we relate to one another.
Mm.
That's not how naturally we relate. Now, I mean, obviously, there are animals in the animal kingdom that do have hierarchy status and structures,
Yeah.
but it didn't end well for any of them that I
Yeah.
saw.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's crazy.
yeah, it's males lend better to hierarchy structures than women do, I think.
Yeah.
I think that when you put women in hierarchy structures versus longhouse or round table or collaborative structures, there's something that kind of short circuits
Yeah.
with women. I've seen it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen,
No, I've absolutely seen it too in my,
and I think it can be different,
yeah.
which is, why I'm excited to do more camps with women in the future. But I think it's a culture, like you said, and an environment that has to be intentionally created because
Mm,
otherwise
wow.
hierarchy with women can spiral in weird ways.
100%. Yes.
Yes.
I love that. That's such a beautiful, beautiful ending note. Now, you mentioned a little bit about camps in the future and other ventures that you're currently doing. So I'd love to kind of wrap up this episode with sharing how the listeners can connect more with you, follow your adventures, learn from you if they want to explore climbing more. What resources do you have available that I can post in the show notes for them, so that we can get you out there connected with more women and we can kind of grow our climbing and jujitsu communities?
I love this. First of all, to the audience, I am like beyond thrilled that Natalie and I here have been talking about collaboration. We obviously have a ton in common. We deeply care about the holistic approach to both climbing, hot yoga, jujitsu. I mean, all kinds of things, training, mobility, mindset. Um, I think we're a great mix to bring the next stage kind of hips and grips camps 2.0.
Ay, ay,
And
ay! Woo, woo,
yeah,
woo,
and
woo.
have it make a comeback.
Yes.
It's been on a 3-year hiatus,
It
and
is time. It is
it's
time.
time. I moved from Oregon to Idaho. You moved from Philly to Texas. We both had multiple things going on in our worlds. You have babies, all kinds of things where I feel like I can be back into a space to collaborate with somebody such as yourself to bring women's climbing and jujitsu camps back to the forefront. We had 3 very, very successful camps. I'm thrilled to have your expertise as a part of this and as, a mentor and a teacher in these camps, teaching everything from mindset, nutrition, breath work, mobility, fitness, all of it. I just think together we have a lot to offer, and I'm very, very excited. You and I have spoken about a goal of a fall camp approximately a year from now, maybe even a Halloween camp. We can talk about that more. Our biggest camp was the Halloween camp. The last camp we did for hips and grips, it was fantastic. It was in Las Vegas, which is some of the best. It sounds counterintuitive because Vegas just sounds like Sin City and a bunch of lights. But anybody who's been there, you go 20 minutes outside the strip and you have some of the best climbing in the world at Red Rocks. And I
Yeah.
have an entire team of female guides there that guided our last hips and grips camp that would love and be thrilled to do it again. They absolutely had a blast working with all these incredible jujitsu women who were interested in climbing. They were coming to the sport of climbing with a certain base level of fitness already from
Hmm.
jujitsu. And so they're like, oh my God, these are like dream clients to guide because women coming from jujitsu into learning how to climb, again, have been controlling fear, have been working through breathing already, have a certain base level of fitness. So for our crew of female climbing guides and myself, it was just like the dream demographic to work with.
Yes. I love
So
that.
yeah, I think that Natalie, you and I have a lot more exciting Zoom meetings ahead of us.
Yes,
And
we
I
do.
would just like to invite all the ladies listening to consider saving up your pennies for next fall for the camp of a lifetime.
Absolutely. And I'll put her Instagram handle in the show notes just to connect with her. And if you have a wait list type of form, we could maybe get that in the show notes too of some kind, just for anybody who's interested, just so we know specifically that you're interested. We can reach out as those deets kind of roll out and you
Mhm.
can
No
start
climbing
preparing.
experience
But
necessary.
no climbing experience, no
Yep,
jujitsu experience
yep,
necessary. So
yep.
those who are climbers listening and want to, I definitely have some climber friends that don't do jujitsu but are interested.
Yes.
And so, it's totally open. We're trying to mesh these worlds, and we've had an extensive conversation today and just seeing the crossover that both of these sports, my throat,
Mine too today.
right?
But
So
yeah, I
these ones
think,
offer.
don't feel intimidated. If you've ever wanted to learn to rock climb, possibly ice climb in the future, which is just truly one of the most beautiful things I do all year. We have the best AMGA female climbing guides in the world as a part of these camps. We have, Natalie, who's a beyond belief female black belt. We have so much experience to offer all of you. We would love to make this a safe and fun camp for you ladies.
Yes. So
Thank
I hope you
you.
guys loved this episode. I know that I had so much fun. I was laughing, had chills, goosies. Um, this was a soul
Me
sister
too.
conversation, and I'm so glad that you all could be a part of it as well. And I hope that you felt the energy, the vibes, and I hope that you guys, try, or if you're interested and maybe you don't want to try it, you could just shoot us a message and we can ease some of those fears or share our experiences with you, whether you tag me or you tag on mine. But we will definitely support you in whatever that looks like. So, in the meantime, any golden nuggets that you took away, that you learned, the insight, share it on social media. That would
Yeah,
be super
please.
appreciated. You could
Yeah.
tag again either of us. And other than that, I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you so much for tuning into the episode, and I will see you in the next one.
Thank you.